Good morning, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley with the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion for September 22nd, 2019, recorded around 6:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Well, overnight here in the tropics, we've had a lot transpire here. Tropical Storm Karen has formed near the Windward Islands here, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. Tropical Storm Jerry is continuing off towards the northwest here, and will eventually bring some sort of impacts to Bermuda, and we'll take a look at that here in just a little bit. An Invest 90L has formed here in the Atlantic, and this will likely become a tropical depression or storm within the next couple of days and likely make its way out to sea. But again, we don't know. That it's still too early to say at this point in time. So looking at Tropical Storm Jerry, it is still a tropical storm with sustained winds of 65 miles per hour, moving north-northwest now at 12 miles per hour. But you can definitely see that the cone has shifted from being over in this region to now being sort of over in this region. So it has shifted a little bit further off towards the west, and that is going to hopefully make Bermuda not feel a lot of these impacts. However, this is going to be almost the exact track that Humberto took. If you remember, Humberto sort of came out like that, or more so like that, and went up this region. So Jerry will be kind of crossing into the same region that Humberto went down, but this will only be a tropical storm. Now, there will probably be some impacts to some part of Bermuda from Jerry, but what sort of impacts right now, it is still a little bit too early. Currently, we're not expecting a whole heck of a lot there for Bermuda. But again, people in Bermuda interest there should continue to monitor the progress of that. After this leaves Bermuda, this will eventually race off towards the north and east, and then be of no significant consequence to the Canadian Maritimes. This will produce a little bit of swells for the northeastern United States. So again, rip currents, those things can and have killed people, so we just want you to pay attention to beach officials and people like that for the latest on that. You can definitely see here, we've started to see more of that in that way of convective burst, but you can mainly tell from the IR satellite, our center is located right around here, somewhere probably roughly in about this region and across here. So there's almost no convection still around that actual center. You can sort of see where the low-level center is from the spiraling of clouds here, and that is indicative of this continued shear that is infringing on the system, pushing all this convection away from your actual low-level center, and that has allowed the low-level centers and mid-level centers to be decoupled. Your mid-level center is back here with all this convection, but your low-level center is roughly in about here, so they are not vertically aligned. And as long as that continues to be the case, this should not intensify really much, if at all, throughout this time period. Models do suggest that they could become more aligned during the day today and tomorrow, which may allow some re-intensification, potentially back into a hurricane across days 2 and 3 across this region. But again, it is still a little bit too early to determine that. Currently, you can see that here the visible satellite shot that we have continues to show that we have a very disorganized system. You can see it's very indicative of that shear, with your low-level center somewhere in about here. Your mid-level center is somewhere in this broad mess right here. So that is pretty indicative of the shear that is just continuing to infringe on the system and should not allow significant coupling and organization, at least until the shear starts to lessen up. Taking a look at a recently formed Tropical Storm Karen. This is a tropical storm that kind of came up upon us last night. The National Hurricane Center about 11 o'clock issued a special update to the 8 o'clock tropical weather discussion, and basically they upped it to a 70%. Now this has become a full-fledged tropical storm at this point. So we have tropical storm warnings for portions of the extreme lesser Antilles down here, Trinidad, Tobago, Grenada, those regions, and we also have a tropical storm watch here for Barbados, Vincent, and the Grenadines, So St. Vincent and the Grenadines now are under a tropical storm watch. This is expected to remain a tropical storm throughout the next couple of days and make this bend off towards the north. And this could impact Puerto Rico and the U.S. British Virgin Islands here within the next couple of days. This could impact a large portion of Puerto Rico at this point in time. Now, this is not expected to rapidly intensify across here. There's still a lot of shear that is kind of infringing on the system. By the time we get out to days 4 and 5 across this region, there will be less of a shear factor. However, there's also another component that is starting to be a little concerning. This is indicative, or this is being indicated by pretty much all the global models at this point in time, that there will be a slowing down here. You can see by Thursday and Friday, this storm is not moving much. This is only moving, maybe 4 or 5 miles per hour, if that, at this point in time. So between 2 a.m. Thursday and 2 a.m. Friday, the system's not moving much. And why is that a problem? Well, there's going to be another high pressure region that is sort of going to be building back in across this region. The Bermuda High is going to start to set back up, and that could force the storm back towards the west. And we've seen a lot of the models this morning indicate that. If we sort of go here to the track forecast here, this is the TVCN. This is the multi-model consensus that the National Hurricane Center uses. And you can definitely see that is a little bit sharper pretty much than all the other models at this point, but only really one model continues to take this on an out-to-sea path. And that's a little concerning. Even pretty much all the models indicate somewhat of a turn. So following, the mean of these models, that's, roughly a turn. If I can sort of draw this thing right, that's pretty much a turn sort of in this region up through here. That's going to be very interesting over the coming days to see exactly how that, how that progresses. If you look at the GEPS tracks, you can definitely tell that most of the ensemble members are making it further off towards the west here. So this could be a United States concern here. Now, where exactly across the United States, we don't know yet. So, of course, it's hurricane season, so if you live in the United States, just continue to monitor the progress of that. Also watching from the GEFS, this is the GFS model consensus. Excuse me, this is the GFS consensus models here, and you can definitely see that sharp right or left-hand turn, and that could be a problem. So with the ridge building over top, that could definitely be a problem here. Looking at the visible satellite here for this system, you can definitely see that we've had a lot of shear being impacted on the system. If we go to the IR satellite here, you can definitely tell that we do not have a well-established center. It'd probably be right about in there if we had a well-established center. And some of the radar shots this morning, I can't pull that up right now, but some of the radar shots this morning do suggest that we may have a center of circulation right about in here. We've had that deeper convection that's formed across that region, but regardless, tropical storm conditions expected for most of this region across the day today. St. Vincent, the Grenadines, obviously, throughout the next day or two, we could see this as the center sort of tracks somewhere in about here and then makes that northward turn. So again, a lot to watch here with that. Going to the European model, this is the 0Z run of the European. This is Tropical Storm Jerry across here, and we'll actually back this out to the North Atlantic. This is also from tropicaltidbits.com, by the way. So we back this out to the North Atlantic here, and we're looking at the 500 geopotential height here. This is basically the steering currents up in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and you can definitely tell that we have this pretty decent ridge across here, but we also have a ridge that's kind of sitting across here. And we have this weakness right here in the ridge with a trough here that was kind of kicked out, I believe, and that is actually the remnants right here. This is kind of the troughiness caused by the remnants here of Humberto, which is right here. That's kind of the remnants moving off in that general direction. But you can definitely see that we have this weakness right here, and with the blocking pattern sort of like this, Jerry should be able to find a rather solid path here on its way sort of out to sea, but getting pretty close to Bermuda doing so. So again, this mainly follows a break in the ridge here, and by 24 hours we have this ridge that is starting to break down. You notice there isn't a lot of basically the 594 decameter heights, that's basically the height lines in the atmosphere, suggesting a pretty strong ridge. We do not have that at hour 24, which does suggest that this will continue to follow this break in the ridge here and continue on its way out to sea. So again, by then hour 48, the European does sort of intensify Jerry back into a hurricane strength here, but notice what's happening. We have another trough of low pressure kind of coming across here. This will mainly force and catch Jerry and make its escape route here. Also note this will be eventually, that is 94L, or excuse me, not 94L, 90L right there, which will become a tropical storm here likely for the next couple of days. And this is Karen across here, moving near Puerto Rico. And by 72 hours, you notice this is the trough here, the second trough axis. Whoa. The second trough axis, which is located right here. That will continue to mainly focus Jerry on out to sea here. So really no threats to the United States or the Canadian Maritimes from Jerry at this point in time. But do note here is Tropical Storm Karen right here. So Tropical Storm Karen and another tropical storm coming off here from 90L. Really after 96 hours though, here is kind of what's left over here of Jerry, but notice what's starting to happen. We're starting to get this high pressure blocking pattern back in here. And as such, by about 120 hours, you noticed, oh, well, what happened? It's mainly now focused and stalled. So this is what the National Hurricane Center is indicating. That the storm sort of comes up here, and after passing through Puerto Rico, this will begin to sort of creep around here and sort of meander across this region. Also notice here's our next tropical, probably likely hurricane over here. But you can definitely tell that we've started to have this high pressure region blocking here, and there's no discernible trough right now. There's no troughiness like you can see out here, or what caught Jerry and made its way out to sea. But you notice here, eventually we're starting to get a little bit of a break here in the ridge by roughly close to around day 6. And this is going to mainly be able to help this system get steered out to sea. But you see by 168 hours, and this is the furthest we're going to go, that ridge here across the United States does intensify and forces this further off towards the south and west. So we're not going to go past 168 hours at this point in time. But you can definitely see that we have this break in the ridge across right here. We have this break, and this will be a trough right here, allowed to catch this system and force it on out to sea. This system may not be so lucky, and we really have to watch this because this could be a potential threat for somewhere across the United States or the Bahamas at this point in time. It is still a little bit too early, but we do believe that this could be of a notable threat here. So Invest 90L at this current point in time, you definitely see it as sort of well on its way to becoming a tropical storm or depression at this point in time. I do not think we have a closed center of circulation, but that is certainly a circulation one to bear reckon with. So again, a lot to watch here over the coming days. Most of the model tracks here, this GFS models, mainly turn this one out to sea. So hopefully that continues to be the case. So a lot to watch here over the coming days. Again, we are watching Tropical Storm Jerry here, which should bring minimal impacts to Bermuda at this time. Also watching Tropical Storm Karen for its impacts to the Lesser Antilles, and also for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands later in the week, and Invest 90L, which should turn out to sea, but we are also watching that. Very favorable time setting up here in the Atlantic with the Madden-Julian oscillation. This will provide a very favorable pattern setting up here in this part of the Western Atlantic Basin. So a lot to watch here over the coming days and weeks. And of course, I will be on top of it. I'll have another video discussion out by 11 o'clock, going over the 11 o'clock advisory for Karen and Jerry. Hope you all have a great rest of your morning, and I'll see you at 11.